The humidity here hits you like a physical blow, a heavy blanket of moisture rising from the bay that carries the scent of salt, diesel, and centuries of survival. It is 32 degrees in the shade. The air itself feels ancient. You are standing on the edge of the Pacific where the water meets a sprawling, chaotic organism of concrete and steel. This is Manila, Philippines, a metropolis that breathes with the collective pulse of nearly 14 million people. It is a city of impossible density. Every square inch here is occupied, utilized, and claimed by life. The sound of the wind is drowned out by the roar of jeepney engines and the hiss of air brakes from cargo trucks hauling containers from the port. To the uninitiated, it looks like anarchy, but look closer at the streets. There is a rhythm to the chaos. This is not just a city, it is a monument to sheer human will. Long before the skyline was pierced by glass towers, this delta was a kingdom of bamboo and water. The story begins with the Pasig River. In the 16th century, this waterway was the lifeblood of a settlement ruled by Raja Suleiman. It was a trade hub where Chinese junks bartered silk for gold, long before a single European boot stepped onto the sand. The river was clear then. Mangroves protected the muddy banks, but geography is often a curse. In 1571, the Spanish conquistador Miguel López de Legazpi arrived, seeing not just a village but a strategic gateway to China. He didn't just conquer, he terraformed. The bamboo palisades of Suleiman were burned to the ground. In their place, the Spanish rose a fortress of volcanic stone. They called it Intramuros, the walled city. It was an engineering feat of its time. Massive blocks of adobe were cemented together, creating walls 20 feet thick to withstand pirate cannonballs and tropical typhoons. For 300 years, this grid of cobblestone streets and Baroque churches was the center of the Spanish East Indies. It was a slice of Europe transplanted into the tropics. The wealth that flowed through these streets was staggering. Manila became the pivot point of the world's first true globalization, the galleon trade. For 2.5 centuries, massive wooden ships, the Manila galleons, sailed the treacherous route between here and Acapulco, Mexico. They carried Asian spices and porcelain eastward and returned heavy with New World silver. The city grew fat on this exchange. It became the Pearl of the Orient, a cosmopolitan mix of Spanish officials, Chinese merchants, and native workers. Yet the urban design was strictly segregated. The Spaniards lived within the safety of the walls. The Chinese and locals lived outside in the districts of Binondo and Quiapo. This division was physical and psychological. Stone walls defined the social hierarchy, but stone cannot stop the march of time. By the late 19th century, the empire was crumbling. When the Americans arrived in 1898, they saw a city trapped in the past. They brought with them a new god, urban planning. The famous architect Daniel Burnham, fresh from designing Washington, D.C. and Chicago, was brought to Manila, Philippines to reimagine its future. Burnham stood on the grassy fields of Luneta and envisioned a city beautiful of the East. He drew up plans for a grand civic center with neoclassical buildings arranged around a central mall, radiating boulevards, and efficient waterways. He wanted order. He wanted grandeur. The legislative building and the post office were constructed as temples to democracy, built with towering ionic columns and reinforced concrete. It seemed Manila was destined to become the Paris of Asia. The postcards from the 1930s show a stunning, orderly capital with wide, tree-lined avenues free of traffic, but history had a violent turn waiting. The dream would soon turn to ash. The year 1945 wiped the map clean. During the final months of World War II, Manila became the battlefield for a brutal showdown between American forces and the entrenched Imperial Japanese Army. The Battle of Manila is a scar that has never fully healed. It was not a strategic retreat, it was a massacre. For 1 month, the city was shelled, burned, and blasted street by street. The beautiful neoclassical buildings Daniel Burnham had inspired were reduced to hollowed-out skeletons. Intramuros, the stone heart of the colony, was pulverized. When the smoke cleared, 100,000 civilians lay dead in the rubble. The Pearl of the Orient was gone. Manila was the second most devastated Allied city in the world, surpassed only by Warsaw. The loss was total. Rebuilding was not a structured process, it was a desperate scramble for shelter. In the immediate post-war vacuum, the surviving population needed roofs over their heads immediately. There was no time for the city beautiful. The debris was pushed aside to make way for function over form. Jeepneys, crafted from surplus American military jeeps, became the primary mode of transport because the tram network was destroyed. They remain the kings of the road today. As the old center of Manila lay in ruins, a new vision emerged in the swampy grasslands to the south. This was the birth of Makati. The Zobel de Ayala family, led by the visionary Joseph McMicking, looked at a vast tract of marshland that was essentially useless for agriculture and saw a financial district. It was a gamble of immense proportions. McMicking imposed strict deed restrictions and zoning codes, creating a master-planned community that was decades ahead of the government's own capabilities. While old Manila struggled with decay, Makati rose from the mud. Concrete mixers worked 24/7 as 15 new skyscrapers rose simultaneously across the financial district in the 1960s and 70s. This shifted the city's center of gravity. The corporate headquarters, the banks, and the foreign embassies migrated south, leaving the historic district to stagnate. This bifurcation created the Manila we see today, a city of cities. It is a patchwork of independent fiefdoms rather than a cohesive whole. You can see this contrast vividly from the air. A drone flying through clouds above Metro Manila reveals a startling juxtaposition. To the west, the rusted tin roofs of the port area stretch for miles. To the east, the gleaming glass curtain walls of Bonifacio Global City reflect the tropical sun like a mirage. Hidden beneath the pavement, however, is a battle against nature itself. Manila is sinking. The extraction of groundwater for millions of residents has caused the land to compress. In some areas, the ground level drops by several centimeters every year. This is a terrifying metric. When the monsoon rains lash the archipelago, the water has nowhere to go. The old drainage systems, some dating back to the American era, are overwhelmed. Engineers fight a constant war to keep the city dry. Massive pumping stations, humming with the power of thousands of horses, work furiously to push floodwaters out into Manila Bay. It is a precarious existence. The city is essentially terraforming itself daily to survive. Yet the infrastructure continues to evolve in defiance of these challenges. The Skyway Stage 3 is a testament to this modern engineering audacity. This 18-kilometer elevated expressway floats above the congested streets, a concrete ribbon stitching the north and south together. Building it was a logistical nightmare. Construction crews had to maneuver massive prefabricated girders into place above active traffic lanes, working in tight corridors between existing buildings and high-voltage power lines. It changed the flow of the metropolis overnight. What used to be a 3-hour ordeal of gridlock is now a 20-minute drive. This is the new strategy. If you cannot build wide, you build up. The underground is just as complex. Beneath the chaotic surface, plans are finally moving for the Metro Manila subway. For decades, this was a phantom project, delayed by politics and funding. Now, tunnel boring machines are chewing through the soil, navigating a labyrinth of forgotten foundations and water tables. This is not just transport, it is survival. A city of this density cannot function on surface roads alone. The subway aims to move hundreds of thousands of people daily, reducing the crushing volume of vehicles above. It is a race against demographic destiny. But the most controversial transformation is happening on the water. Look out at Manila Bay today and you will see a fleet of dredging ships reshaping the coastline. They are building islands from the sea. The horizon is filled with barges dumping sand, creating new land for future casino resorts and residential towers. These reclamation projects are massive, involving millions of tons of fill material. Proponents call it the next Dubai. Critics fear it will worsen the flooding and destroy the last remaining marine ecosystems. It is a high-stakes gamble with the environment. The sun sets over these artificial islands, casting long shadows over the water that once welcomed the galleons. The human element of Manila is perhaps its most resilient infrastructure. In the district of Tondo, one of the most densely populated places on Earth, life operates on a different frequency. Here, dock workers navigate narrow alleys that sunlight rarely touches. The economy is informal but vibrant. Everything is recycled, nothing is wasted. A single rusty nail found at a demolition site is collected, straightened, and sold. This ingenuity is the city's true engine. It is a place where a small sari-sari store carved out of a living room window supports a family of 5. This microeconomy hums beneath the macroeconomy of the stock exchange. As we look to the future, the capital faces an existential crisis. The new Manila International Airport being constructed in the neighboring province of Bulacan promises to be one of the largest in the world. It is designed to relieve the choking pressure on the aging Ninoy Aquino International Airport. This project involves raising the land elevation significantly to account for rising sea levels. It is a recognition that the future will be wetter and more volatile. Architects like Felino Palafox have long advocated for a shift toward vertical urbanism and walkable cities to save Manila from its own congestion. The dream is to connect these disparate islands of development, Makati, BGC, Ortigas, into a cohesive, transit-oriented megalopolis. The transformation is visible in the skyline silhouette at dusk. The jagged profile of the city tells the story of its eras. You see the squat, heavy silhouettes of the brutalist concrete structures from the 1970s. You see the tapered spires of modern corporate towers. And down below, barely visible in the shadows, are the tile roofs of the few remaining colonial houses. Manila, Philippines is a palimpsest. It is a manuscript that has been written over, erased, and written over again, but the old text still bleeds through. Despite the pollution, the traffic, and the calamities, there is an undeniable energy here. It is a city that refuses to be defeated. When a typhoon floods the streets, the water recedes and the brooms come out immediately. When a fire sweeps through a neighborhood, the hammers start swinging the next morning. It is a relentless cycle of destruction and rebirth. The pearl of the Orient may be chipped and covered in soot, but it is harder than diamond. Manila serves as a warning and a blueprint for the developing world. It shows what happens when urbanization outpaces planning, but it also demonstrates the incredible adaptability of the human spirit. It is a chaotic, messy, beautiful disaster of a city. As the sun dips below the horizon of Manila Bay, painting the sky in violent shades of purple and orange, you realize something profound. This city wasn't built for comfort. It was built for survival, and against all odds it is still standing.